there was this kind of like this process of coming home to myself that I feel like I've been on. And there are 3 parts to it. The first one is remembering. So it's remembering the parts of ourselves, the parts of our lineage, the parts of our stories that have been forgotten, remembering them, honoring them, like fully, And that was that journey back to Ireland for me, was that remembering. And at some point, there was this realization of the return. And the return was, I can't stay in remembering. I have to go back. I have to go back to the present, actually. So the journey to return back to the present moment, that in itself is a journey.
Hello and welcome to Emanate. I am your host, Quiver, and today I am sitting with Savannah Clancy. Savannah is a storyteller, a mother, multimedia artist, folk singer-songwriter, birth keeper, dream walker, and she moves between the worlds through theater, song, poetry, and land tending, with a deep devotion to family, the wilderness, and community. Savannah is also my Anamkara, a soul friend, and we've had the last 4 years traversing many realms together, from travels in Ireland to rooting here in White Salmon with our families. One of the things I love about Savannah is how her creativity listens to land, to lineage, to the unseen, and then gives it form. She carries an embodied wisdom that I know you will love. And before we enter this conversation, I'd love to share a little snippet of her latest single, In Dreams.
There's a place I used to go when I was younger, through a tiny door into a magical world. Couldn't tell, I couldn't tell if I were dreaming. Couldn't tell, I couldn't tell if I were dreaming.
So I'm sitting here with the one and only Savannah Clancy, my Anamkara. We've had lots of mischief making over the past 4 years, and I'm so grateful to be sharing this time with you today. So welcome, Savannah.
Thank you, Em. Yeah, it's really fun to just like get a space to have a space to just share a lot of different parts of of one's story in like this cohesive thread that like connects, because usually we're all like, there's just like a snippet or, scrolling past like just the perfect nugget. And like, that's what I love about podcasts, is like you get to just be invited into a conversation and to hear more cohesion in somebody's story.
Yes. So what's currently alive for you in this season of life?
Well, right now I am a new mother to an almost 1.5-year-old. So with that comes all the things that come along with that. Along with being just very creatively active in my life, just having a lot of creative insights and putting things together. And yeah, so I guess with those two things, the thing that really weaves it all together is this feeling of presence. This feeling of just presence with creation and with just the pulse of being alive. And it's, when I kind of tap into the collective, it's very hard to get really a sense of like what reality actually is, especially I feel like with the internet and just all the things that go along with that with social media and AI. It's like, what is reality? And so that's been a big question that's been alive for me right now. And it's, yeah, so I've been just attuning with this creative pulse of our aliveness and our presence, and being there for my family, and really for my community as well. Like continuously what I come back to is like, how can I really be of service? It's like show up to the people I really love, show up to the people in my community, see what's around me that I have capacity for, that I can offer. And so that's very alive for me. And I guess alongside of that, there's this, you know, when we come into presence and what reality actually is, it makes us really ponder our future, and where we're going and where we are headed. And I think that attachment to a future is what, for so many of us, kind of jolts us out of like presence. So I heard in a speech given by Cecilia Vicuña at the Art Basel Awards, she talked about the ancient roots of the word future, futuro, which means to be, to exist, to grow. And I think that will kind of weave into the conversation that we continue to have. Like, what is this future that we are creating? What is reality? What is possible right here, right now, within our bodies, within our communities, within our family? And there's a very creative aspect to it. So that's fun.
Wow. As you said that, I had the full chills of bringing presence into the future, into now. Something I love about you, Savannah, is how you weave so many beautiful things together.
Mm.
And when I think of you, I think of storyteller. And as this space here and just bringing in this present emergent field. And so I just learned so much from what you share, and just that, the etymology of futura. That's amazing.
I'm obsessed with like root words. I find it so interesting. And there's usually so many. I mean, I find language fascinating in general.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, the root words, there's usually so many from different places. And I think it honestly weaves into like the miscommunication that happens because there's like different root words and people are having this different like lineage of what they're saying actually means.
So even the word root, the
Yeah.
root word,
Yeah.
and it makes me want to ask you what your relationship is with roots and the wild.
Yeah, I would definitely say like everything I do is very much rooted in the wild.
Yeah.
That's always been a core piece for me, just in wanting to live in a way that just honored my innate belonging to the earth, and I always kind of had a sense of that and a feeling for that and a knowing of what that was. But I didn't realize how just like, I don't know, I went on a whole journey of that, and what even brought me to the Pacific Northwest and living on land and living more in tune with the rhythms of the earth. It was kind of just like an intuitive feeling. It wasn't necessarily indoctrined into me. I think my family, we would go camping and we would hike and all this stuff, but it wasn't like, this is our relationship to the earth. That was very much just something that I felt and I knew early on. But I started going to school for like adventure education, and I went to some different outdoor schools and I worked at different outdoor schools, and there was this thread of like adventure and the wilderness being outside of ourselves. And I guess you could say that's a very like Western colonial mindset about the earth and even recreating with the earth. It's like we go out and we have an experience with earth, and then we come back to our homes and to society, to the city, to our lives, and that's outside. And then we have to integrate that back into who we are instead of being like, actually the wildness is in absolutely everything I do. Like, I am not separate from that. Like, my body, everything I do is like really it's a part of the earth, intimately. And yeah, so that was kind of that journey from going like, okay, it's outside of myself, something I am longing for, to realizing that it never left. It was never outside of my grasp. It was always accessible to me. It's always accessible to everyone. Like, nobody is apart from it. Nobody is apart from it. And so there's not really a way to talk about like who we are and what we do without talking about that innateness within us. That what we do to the earth, we do it to ourselves. What we do to ourselves, we do to the earth. And there's really no separation. So yeah, I guess that comes through creatively, very much so in my art, I think, is where I communicate that feeling most transparently.
Would you say that as a child that you had that same feeling with the wild? And just when you think back of when you were young, like, where did you find yourself being most at ease and that feeling of belonging?
Yeah, the biggest thing that comes up for me is that feeling came to me when I wasn't thinking. It was beyond ideas of being. It was just being. And that freedom to be. And what I mean by that freedom to be, it's a self-imposing lack of freedom, I suppose, as we get older, or we're indoctrinated from education, from our families, whatever it is. But like when we are young, that innateness with just our beingness, with the future, what's possible. Like, we're growing into a future at every moment, but we're not like processing it. We're not analyzing it. We're not being like, what's going to happen in 2 years? We just are. We just are. And so for me, when I think back to my childhood, what was the feeling of belonging that I'm searching for as an adult? It was that letting go of this obsession with thought and into this practice of being.
Wow.
That's fun. It's a good time. My brother says I don't know how to have fun, but I
don't
know. Just kidding. He regretted that comment, by the way. He was like, actually, that's not true. Your friends are really cool and you guys have a lot of fun.
That motherhood can be fun. Yeah. So as a little girl, and that innateness, when would you say you began to express creatively with your voice and with any other art medium?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, like, the drive to create has always been a part of my life since as early, as long as I can remember. And even in reflections from my parents, they would tell me about in kindergarten, and there's even some photos of me, but I would love to just like go up to they would have like an empty canvas and paint and just like paint and paint and paint from, you know. And the biggest thing was that's still with me today, which is very much like helpful and sometimes not helpful, is like doing it quickly. Like, I have never had much patience. And so I would like go up and I would paint like a landscape or something and a flower, but it would take me like 5 minutes and then I would be done and I would walk away and I wouldn't want to be with it anymore. Like, I'm like, okay, next. And so that was always, at home, I would always be dancing or putting on a dance show or singing, or writing. When I learned to write, I used to always love to write stories or write in little books. And yeah, it wasn't like singing was always just as much a part of I guess singing was of equal importance to me as other art mediums. But that's been a big thing for me, is that like the perceptions of others, and that others perceived me as a singer, as a musician, as a songwriter. And a part of like this past year and a half has been being like, well, I am more than that. And that's who I am, and that's how I create, is in this very multidimensional, multimedium way. So when I was young, I loved all the art forms. I always wanted to do them. I would do them quickly and then move on, move on. I would love to work collaboratively too. Like I would always love to put on dance shows with my friends, or attempt to, like, I think in like 6th grade, I decided to like direct a Nutcracker. None of my friends are dancers, but I got the whole playlist and I made us practice, and I painted the set. And I mean, I was a very bossy child. Like I definitely had a lot of creative oomph.
Had?
Yeah. Had and continue to have.
Yeah.
And continue to have. Yeah, it's like an incessant drive. Like, I don't know how not to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you say it's your nature?
Definitely my nature.
Yeah. When did you start writing songs? I know you're way more than just songs, but just when thinking of that particular craft.
Yeah.
And then what would you find yourself singing about?
When I was in 7th grade, I asked my dad for a guitar. And I said I want to learn it so that I can start writing songs. But I don't have like a recollection of something like driving me to do that. Like I've talked to other people where they're like, somebody I knew was a singer, and I saw that and I wanted to do that, or I had this experience. It wasn't like that. And it's kind of mysterious in that way to me. Like other art mediums, like I remember as a kid doing it a lot, and I remember singing, but like I don't remember this, why it was such a specific drive to write songs and what that quest was. But yeah, I wanted a guitar. I wanted to learn it to write songs. And I learned the basics of guitar, and then I started writing pretty immediately. And a lot of them were like, I mean, really bad songs. I mean, really bad. Like I do have a couple recordings here and there, and it's like, holy guacamole. It's like, but you know, it's like really cheesy stuff, you know. It was like about relationships, or even like writing about stuff I didn't know, like, oh my gosh, he broke my heart. But like I had not had a broken heart at that. Like I had no idea what that meant. But anyways, but also about the earth, blah, 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 all those things that, I love. And I love, I was already starting to question those things and bring them into my reality.
So your first, I really want to hear some of the old songs.
Yeah.
If you would ever want to share those. So Roots in the Water, that was your first album release in 2024. And I remember you sharing that some of those songs had been with you for a long time, like since high school.
Yeah.
And yeah, just what has that relationship been like to be with those songs for that long?
Right. Well, and it's a little bit of, I'll answer that question, but this part, it's a little bit of a bridge between the last one and this one. I remember like the first time I wrote a song I really loved. I was a sophomore in high school, and we were going on like a field trip, and we were on a school bus, and I was looking out the window and I was watching the birds fly, and like a little song came into my head. And so I would say sophomore in high school is when I started writing songs that I would still sing now. And how they kind of started to really come online for me was usually when I was in between things. Usually bored. Boredom was like a huge part of starting to write songs. So for this one, it was like riding on a bus, and I didn't have a phone. And I think there were like 2 school buses, and all my friends were on the other bus, and I was like really bummed about it. And so I just stared out the window, and like a little song came to me. But that was true for the songs that came after that. You know, a lot of them came while I was on a hike, and while I was walking, you know, I would kind of repeat some lines in my head. Actually, a lot of them were written without guitar, like when I started actually to really enjoy them. And or when I was waiting for my mom to pick me up from school, I was sitting there, and you know, if all my friends had been picked up, I would just like kind of be bored, and I would start singing a song. And so those in between moments were a very essential part of like creativity for me, and specifically songwriting, because what's so cool is that you don't need anything to write a song, is what I realized, right? And like you can just do it anywhere at any time when there's a pause. So that became a very like empowering tool to like just be my friend in moments where there wasn't anything else to do, or
Brilliant.
And I go crazy being bored, like I mean in a good way, but like that's usually when I'm creative, is when I'm a little bored. So anyway, so with Roots in the Water, there were definitely some songs from high school, and a little bit and then a little bit after. There was a period at the end of high school to the beginning of college where I didn't write a song for like 3 years. And I'm very much like, I talk a lot about the seasons of creativity, how there's sometimes where it's like you're getting the seed of an idea, you know, this springtime, like you're planting the seeds for things, or the summer, you're fully in your expression, you're creating all the time. It's like so joyful. And then like the harvest, it's like you're reflecting, you're looking back. And then there's the winters where it's like, there's nothing there, but there is something there, but there needs to be the spaciousness for the, to create the space for fertility, you know. It's the fertile soil of nothing. But that spaciousness of 3 years, I think it was a very challenging time for me. And like some people come to songwriting when they're having a hard time, that's a way that they move through things. I very much experienced it as something I did when I felt spacious and joyful. And I think that reflects a lot of my songs. Even ones that have like a sad aspect to them, they're usually like foundationally hopeful. So yeah, so Roots in the Water, there were a couple songs from that before this period of not songwriting, and then after. And so after 3 years of not writing a song, I remember going to sleep one night and I woke up and suddenly I wanted to write songs. It was just that fast. And I think within the month I wrote 12 songs.
Wow.
So it's also just like trusting, like, you know, that's very much a part of my whole thing is trusting. And when the spark comes, like listening to it, because there's this other part, right? There's this like complete trusting and surrender to the creative process and the seasons and all of those things, you know? And then there's like, when it comes to you, you have to answer. You know, if you close the door, nobody can do it but you. So you have to be able to answer that call. And that might be a little bit hard, and you might have to push through some resistance. And there are very practical, actionable steps to creating when, when it's time, or if you're blocked, there are ways to move past that, So I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of different parts of listening to your creative voice and creating from that. But all that to say, Roots in the Water, this album, spanning across quite a few years of songs. I think it wasn't until like 3 years after the last song on that album, I decided to finally record it with somebody I met after I moved to the Pacific Northwest, Michael Sherry, who's a dear friend and now, but when we first met, my dad met him. He was like, I think, they talked about music. He's like, I don't know, would you be interested in helping my daughter record? He had like a home recording studio. He was like, I don't know, maybe. And we invited him over and we hung out and I sang and we were just like, yes, we're gonna work creatively together. And Michael was such an important person for me in kind of crossing this threshold from my own like internal process of what it means to be creative and write, and then like to share here and there, into pursuing it more seriously. More seriously. And Michael was so enthusiastic and so supportive, like sincerely, so sincerely supportive of my songs and my voice and just sharing that with the world. And there was just space to do what I wanted, do what we wanted, like to not put this rule book on how it needed to be or way of sharing my music with the world.
I just want to take a moment to bring in the life of Holy River, that song, because that song, you also got to express it in the music video. Michael was there. You invited me to be part of it. I was so grateful to be your huntress.
Yeah, you were epic. That was really fun. Like, I'm so glad we're talking about that music video because honestly, it was awesome.
It was so, like, talk about emergent field. Like, we just went one day and filmed it. And so whatever you want to share about that creative process, because I feel that brings in this multi-dimensional Savannah.
Yeah, I think for me, being a creative person means to be available to the moment. To really be available to the moment, because there's this, right? It's like, okay, what is the act of creation? It's bringing the formless into form. And the formless is not going to be the same as it is when it's in form. Because they can't be the same. Because one's form and one's formless. So if you over-attach yourself to the formless, like, and what I mean by that is the vision, the thing that you're imagining, or the song you hear in your ear, like a little earworm on the wind, that you want to capture, and you're like, I'm going to write a song, right? And like this, I think, blocks so many creative people, is they're like, I have to express it exactly how it is in my imagining. But like, gosh, how many beautiful things have not been creative because of not surrendering to the emergence of the moment. So one of the things I really love is that word, emergence. What happens in a room where we detach ourselves from expectations? So Holy River was a great example of that. I had these little visions of what it was going to be. And what one of those things was, I was going to wear my mom's gorgeous wedding dress, and I was going to go and marry myself to the land and be born anew. And there was this aspect of the hunter that you were. And I don't there's a lot of different mythology and things that kind of inspired this idea of these two parts of ourselves, and psychology and mythology. It's such a long ramble. I'm not even going to go down that road. So I knew that there was going to be a hunter, somebody following, that was going to be the catalyst, that was going to be the catalyst for the transformation, and was going to be another part of, be an aspect of the land, really.
Within me lives a sadness so deep and so wide, it pulls me down so I can't see the sky. I try to find the light, but it's sometimes so hard. I'm falling into the deep abyss of stars, and outside my window hummingbirds fly, and for a moment the heaviness dies, but the drilling never ceases, the hunger increases. We're dying beside a gray river. Holy river, I pray, show me the way.
Yeah, I knew I wanted that wedding dress. I also knew that I wanted red roses to symbolize just the blood, the pulse of life. And so I brought that. And then I knew that I was probably going to be reborn as a stag. So I brought a hide that I had processed from a roadkill killed deer. I brought that too. And then what I did is I just threw into the car anything that could be needed in the moment. So just random articles of clothing and cloths and a keyboard and, the cameras. I mean, and then I drove my very full truck that was very disorganized to this location that we had decided to film it, and I'd asked a few friends, Em and Michael and Jordan and Christine, who filmed it, and my dad, who's always he's always along for the ride, to let's go to this location, and are you guys down to film this with me? And usually people are like, yeah, we're down. What's it gonna look like? And I'm like, I'm not sure, but we're just gonna have to arrive to the moment. And at that time still, I think I was still trying to explain things to people. And now I've given up on that a little bit, because I usually try to explain it, and then people are trying to do what I say, and then I completely pivot. So it's it's just being available to the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for people like you and others who do that with me, who are available to it. And so we did that. We just did this we just started filming these different pieces and this different parts and little snippets of that vision, in the dress, and then of you with the bow and arrow, and then I think it was just dusk, and I was like, it was like, okay, are we done? It was like, well, there was this piece that I envisioned, which was emerging from the river, because the song is Holy River, as a stag. And I was like, we gotta get that. And we were pretty deep into nature at this point. And, it's a known mountain lion habitat for sure. like just wildlife. It's a wildlife sanctuary. And I was like, well, we have to do this. So I stripped down and I got into the dress. I first went in, okay, had to go in the dress and went into this cold water. It's also late November.
It's November.
Yeah, it was very cold. So just at dusk, and I was like, we have to do this. So I went into the river and then got out, and then I took off my clothes, and then I put on this like salty, not perfectly processed hide onto my body, and then these stag antlers, and then I like went to the other side of the river and was like far away from everybody and was like, you know, y'all filmed me like going into the forest. And I really had that thought, like, I really hope I'm not eaten right now. Like, I mean, like artistically, that would be interesting. But personally,
traumatizing for us.
Personally, I feel like there's more to life than this music video. But I remember walking back, I still had the deer hide on, just being like, wow, I have really made myself seem like prey.
Holy river, I pray, show me the way. Oh, holy river, I pray, show me the way.
But anyways, and then the process of like editing is a whole other journey of like storytelling. That's so cool. Just like being available, listening, following this like pulse. It's like this pulse when you're creating. It's like you can kind of feel when you're losing people a little bit. And then it's like, how do you bring them back in? And it's like this energy. And so that's what's so cool about like songwriting or editing or all these things. It's like keeping this thread, keeping the wavelength, you know? And anyways, so all that to say, it was such a cool story. And then like looking back at it, even over the last few years, so much meaning has emerged from it that I couldn't have comprehended at that moment. And so that's also what I think, like deep listening to things that we don't know, like that we don't need to understand it all. And being willing to be a vessel for things we don't yet know.
Wow. Well, and you didn't yet know that shortly after that, you would be conceiving.
That's true. That's true.
And so
I think within weeks, like
weeks. Yeah. So good thing the mountain lion didn't come.
Yeah.
And you've been bringing in this intimacy with the mystery and the fertility of space and seasons and listening. And so I'm curious because then you were pregnant when Roots in the Water was released.
Yeah.
And what was that like to be creating that album while also creating life?
Yeah, so by the time I got pregnant, I had been in the process of recording for a year. I'm like a really slow like I'm working on my second one and we're also going on year 2. Like at some point I hope like it's not going to be that slow for me, but right now that's what it looks like. So yeah, I was finishing up working on the songs, and like you said, the album ended up being released while I was pregnant. And there are a few things. One is like so much energy goes into creating life, you know? It's like other things just start to fall away. And you just get to really ask yourself, like, what's important to me? And something that I really value and like I take pride in within myself is completing things, is completing tasks. And so I was like, yeah, I got to complete this. I got to complete this. Even though it's been spacious and slow and I've taken my time and all these things, it's like it needs to happen because I needed closure for one, so that I could embark on the next chapter of my life, which was bringing this being into life. And also creatively, I knew that there were, I had so many more songs that I wanted to share, that I wanted to sing, that I wanted to write, but like my creative cup was full until I let some of it go. So I guess that's all there is with it. It was like, once I got pregnant, it was just really like, how can I honor this and let this be so that there's space for what's next?
Brilliant.
Yeah, and it's been a great foundation.
So birth has clearly been a teacher for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember when we first met, you were telling me all about this amazing course that you're in called the Matrona, and your enthusiasm for birth fascinated me because how you would be sharing what you were learning from Wapio and then how birth, you've witnessed birth, you've had your own experience of crossing the threshold of birth. And so how would you say birth has shaped you creatively?
I love that question. It's a good one. So I was kind of studying birth for 4 years prior to getting pregnant, and attending birth and surrounded by mothers, including yourself.
Boring mothers. No.
It's a good inside joke. I love it. So, yeah, I was just, I guess, like, I was very drawn to birth for a little bit. I felt like there was so much more to be understood and realized, and that's kind of what sparked that. And then supporting one of my dear friends through her birth and pregnancy of her first child had a pretty big influence on me and, you know, my understanding of what it meant to be human. I remember walking away being like, why isn't everybody talking about this? And so, yeah, I went down this path of studying with Wapio, who is an elder midwife. And she teaches a lot about birth. And I signed up for a year-long course with her and just so innocently, like, showed up to the conversation of birth, not realizing, like, how big of a conversation it was. Like, I think a lot of people who enter into birth or get pregnant, like, so many people don't really know what they're getting into. They're like, oh my gosh, there's a lot. This is creation. This is creation. Conception, pregnancy, birth, motherhood, you know? So the thing that it did for me creatively was that it upped the stakes. It upped the stakes of what I was doing and why. And like, I want to discern here between creativity and creation. Creativity is this, like, there's this element of playfulness, you know, flirting with the divine, flirting with, you know, it's like, it's on the edge, you know, and it's like little songs come through and it's like this dance, you know, and we all have this, like, just innate creativity within ourselves. It's just a part of our nature. Everything we do in life is creative, you know, and then there's this creation, and I was like, what is creation? What is creation? And it's this formless into form. And it's the spirit into the body. It's this, like, it's this bridging between worlds. And the piece that was so important for me, both to just like witness and learn about and then to experience, was the embodiment that creation required. Both the embodiment and then the devotion. That there was a choice that was made, whether you knew it or not. There was a choice. And like in the energetic micro nanosecond of the moment creation happened, to be a vessel for that, right? Like both, I mean, physically with a child or with a song or with an idea. And so let's say you're creatively dancing with the divine, right? And then a crack between these worlds opens and the light pours in. And you said yes, basically. On some level within yourself, you said yes. And then the next part of that is like the work. It's the labor. It's the, it's the hours of morning sickness or, the sensitivities or the exhaustion or the emotions or the expansion and the growing, and then the birthing, like, of this being, and then this rawness of, like, being born anew, the vulnerability of being witnessed in being born anew. And then the many years of devotion and dedication and love and just showing up again and again and again and again. And that's definitely what birth has taught me about creativity. And in everything that I do, it's like I take my creation seriously. And I also know that there's space for creativity. There's space for playfulness. There's places to just dream and be like, what's possible, right? And then there's like that moment where you say yes. And you go on that journey. And it takes commitment, I think, to do those things. So I would say that that piece is what birth has very much shown me about creativity.
Wow. I'm being reminded. I mean, I have right here The Wild Art of Wonder by Savannah Clancy, book of poetry and art. And when you even were talking so poetically about that crack and then the light, wasn't there a poem that when you talked about earlier with the Holy River and not knowing the meaning as it's pouring through you and being open to the mystery and not needing to know?
Yeah.
What was the line in that poem that you didn't then know was going to later be about birth?
And funny enough, I don't know if you remember this, but this poem was written when we were in Ireland.
Oh, what? Cool.
Yeah. I started writing it when we were driving, like, from, like, Dingle up north to Galway.
No way.
Yeah, and I, like, was writing it on my phone. You were driving.
That's so cool.
We were driving.
This is what you're doing while we're driving. Just writing this epic poem on your phone. That's amazing.
Yeah, and then when we were in that cafe in Galway upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
I was writing it into my journal, and I was working on it.
Wow.
So that's like that full
spiral.
I mean, I could read the poem.
Yes.
Okay. And it's the last line that while I was giving birth, it just kept repeating in my head. So, and it's called Whole. And I wrote it. I read it too in the Acorn's Dream. So, Whole. I have come with an ancient's tongue and a newborn's feet, to keen and laugh on the hill. Atop the rocks, gaze out to sea, with a wildness so sharp it seemed shaped by the master himself. Metal, molten edge, once hot burning to touch, now a clear blade. From a million scattered moments, from hell to hole and back again. The underworld merely an otherworld. The salt lasted longer than the sensation. It sweats memory. The wave came then, obliterating, leaving us full. So I believed my skin was mirrored in the sand of my ancestors' footsteps. Earth time lasted longer than forever soft touch. In the wake of the universe, my sense of self, a cavern, carcass, crevice awaited me. A curiosity sat inside, ready for my return. And so it is I went back into the oak, remembering ways, water singing, eternal renewal, and an everlasting stutter. Holy, holy soul, fully. Generosity revealed. I became the tree, and a gentle tear in the earth opened.
Every time it makes Just letting that breathe.
Well, I know that it's not like, well, we kind of talked about. I guess I have a little thought.
Yeah.
Just
Let's roll with it.
like the earth was very much my first creative muse. And the next has very much been like my ancestors
Mm-hmm.
and just honoring their journey. So it's like this part of honoring the past.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a really big part of my creative process, has been learning about my ancestors and even not knowing about them, but imagining them, singing them into the present. So that's been big. And then this final piece, it's not the final piece, but it's like this past, this presence, and this future, like these three things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say more about that later, I guess. So
Oh, I want to let's continue this spiral because now we're in Ireland.
Yeah, I know. We ended up there.
We ended up in Ireland, and it's 2023.
Yeah.
Spring.
Yeah.
And so you brought in Acorn's Dream briefly and ancestors, and so just this being on that land and that pilgrimage, what would you say has influenced when you're talking about like singing and creating about lineage? That trip seemed to really open a lot up.
It did.
And so for Honora and Acorn's Dream, I know we were
I know.
giggling one night, just watching each other's old performing videos. And I loved seeing your theater videos and how theater can be a way of bringing in more of the story, as we were saying, that's to the immensity of what a story is. So whatever you want to share about the birth of Honora, Acorn's Dream, ancestors.
I know, it's all connected.
It's all connected, yeah.
So there's this part of our life that's a living story that we are writing, that we are both like completely at the mercy of, and also collaborators, co-authors of the story. And so for me, what I love creatively is taking just real moments and weaving them with messages from somewhere else and imagining what's possible with those things. So we went to Ireland in 2023, and that was the year before Roots in the Water and a season before pregnancy. And it was just such a gift to get to connect with that land and really connect with my ancestors. And I've always just felt that deep kinship with Ireland, like that was a place that my soul felt at home. When I was young, I used to love to listen to music and hear folk tales and stories, and yeah, it was always inside of me. And even like reconnecting with the Gaelic language and finding that there were words that I already knew that were literally in my body. And yeah, just how much our lineage plays a big role in who we are. And that honoring our lineage is just so essential in what comes next. And there was this kind of like this process of coming home to myself that I feel like I've been on. And there are 3 parts to it. The first one is remembering. So it's remembering the parts of ourselves, the parts of our lineage, the parts of our stories that have been forgotten, remembering them, honoring them, like fully, you know? And that was that journey back to Ireland for me, was that remembering. And at some point, there was this realization of the return. And the return was, I can't stay in remembering. I have to go back. I have to go back to the present, actually. So the journey to return back to the present moment, that in itself is a journey. Because the journey of return, right? It's like you go back in time and then you come back to now. And then once you return, you arrive. And what does it mean to arrive somewhere? It means that all the parts of you that were lost along the way are here. Are here. So that we can go forward into a future that we believe in, into a future that is rooted in reality, which is being, which is presence, which is growing, which is innate wildness. So that's that journey, right? So my ancestors were a really big part of that. And a part of that journey was writing like songs and story that kind of turned into like a play about one of my ancestors named Honora. And actually her song is going to be on this next album that I'm going to cue in at the end. Yeah, so I wrote her story. She's just one of many ancestors that emigrated. And the journey of writing her story was my own journey of arriving. So it's not about writing every story. It's what's the thread that is calling you? What's the thread that's relevant to you? And just like following that and letting it be what it is, not trying to control it or manage it or project other people's timelines or stories onto it. It's like, what is your voice? What is your calling to remember? What is your journey to return? What's going to bring you back home to yourself? So she very much did that for me. And it was my great uncle Tom Clancy who told me that story about Honora and her journey to New York City. And I guess the last part of that, of just honoring Tom and lineage and all these things, is my father's father, Joseph Clancy, Tom's brother, died before my dad was born. And when he was 2, he was adopted by my still alive and well grandfather, who's just an amazing dad and grandfather and human, and we know him as my dad's dad. Um, and yet that there was also this other piece of this ancestor that I always felt very connected to, and who he was and what he did, that it's very much a part of who I am still, and I can see that in a very tangible way. So these things are real, you know? These things are real, like the things our ancestors did, the things our ancestors longed for, the grief that they held, like that is passed down. That is passed down. It doesn't mean that it can't be alchemized. It doesn't mean that you have to go through every right or wrong that somebody did, because that's not what alchemy is. Alchemy is just like trusting the moment of transformation when it happens. And when it happens afterwards, like moving on. You don't have to stay stuck in it. You know, you don't have to stay stuck in the right and wrongs of your ancestors, but you still can honor them. You can still look at them. And maybe it's just one story that brings you back home. So I suppose with that, I could like just share about this next album, because that's something I'm really excited about and kind of closes it all, because the name of this album is A Place to Call Home. And they're songs that I've written just over the last few years of being here, being in the Pacific Northwest, which very much is my home. It kind of just shares some of my story of like where I grew up and coming here and meeting my partner and having my daughter and honoring my lineage, and then also just like singing songs of like place. And it ends on 2 songs. The album will end with 2 songs, Honora and In Dreams, and In Dreams is out in the world.
As the years went by, the magic didn't seem to quite catch my eye. It was only there in my sleeping. It was only there in my sleeping. But I felt its absence in my waking. Is there a place where I'll one day belong? Is there a place where I'll one day belong?
And they kind of like plug in this next chapter for me creatively, which is finishing Honora's story and really sharing it. But the piece of like A Place to Call Home is so what's really important about it to me is like this physically grounding return and arrival of finding home within yourself, within a place, like connecting with the earth, connecting with the people around you, with community, creating family, like all of these things for me is what home is, or what home is. I don't know I don't know what else to say about that, but I'm really excited to share these songs. And there's currently 5 singles out, and the next single for it is coming out February 1st. And then after that, it'll be the full album drop in the spring. So yeah, that's kind of that.
I look forward to that. Is there anything you want to share about what that creative process was like? Those 5 singles?
Yeah. Well, it was another good friend who recorded that album, Ben Larson, who's an incredible musician, and his music is out in the world. Also, I think Michael Sherry is about to share his first album. So that'll be fun to like plug in here. But yeah, Ben Larson has some beautiful music out, and he's just an incredibly talented musician, and he also has like a recording studio at home. And yeah, we decided to do this when I was like, I'm trying to remember. I think it was like right after Roots in the Water came into the world, was released. And so we started recording when I was 8 months pregnant. We started recording it. And I have to tell you, I don't advise that because like your lungs like partly shut down like towards the end of pregnancy, and like humorously, I remember him like, you know, giving me some notes, and I'm like, I physically can't sing that. I can sing that. Like, I didn't really make space for physically how affected your lungs are when you're pregnant and postpartum. Like, well, your body goes through a lot. So, anyways, but yeah, Grew From and Songs That Come In are both songs I recorded while 8 months pregnant. And then we paused, had a baby, and then came back 2 months postpartum and brought her alongside, brought somebody. They like hung out in the next room, and I recorded In Dreams, which was just very like meaningful because that's like a journey of just the soul and honoring ancestors and all that good stuff.
I come from a long line of women who lived and who birthed, who loved and who died. It was only through a mother's love. It was only through a mother's love. And I will sing my ancestors' songs. They will be there when I too am gone. And they will be there when I too am gone.
We're just like finalizing all the songs now. But I just decided that I wanted to share them each as singles, most of the album as singles, just to really honor each song, And I was going to maybe do the whole album as singles, but I think that it's fun to like leave a few on for the final release. So that's kind of that, and they're all stories of just like family and the places that I've called home and people I call home and that have shaped me.
Feels like only yesterday that I was turning 17 and all the world was just possibility. Hard times don't come easily to this faded thing called memories, so I let them go where the river meets the sea. You came in on the autumn breeze, a slow kind of melody.
Creative facilitation is one of, I think, your superpowers because you hold that curiosity of what can emerge. And whether it's through music videos or theater or through this online songwriting course called The Song. So I'd love if you want to share how the song came about and what do you love about witnessing others walk their creative edge?
I'm just in awe of the song and just how it's like grown and the continuous reflections I get on what it was, but what it is, what it will be. But yeah, the song is an online songwriting class, but it has mystical origins, of course. And it really came from this practice of deep listening. And it was it was just for the timeline, like 8 or 9 months before going to Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And I was with a group of like women who are just wise women in the realms of birth. And I was the youngest there, and I was like just hungry for all the wisdom that was there. And we were going to circle up and have a conversation, and I was asked before that circle, what should we talk about? And I just had that moment of like, oh my gosh, I'm being asked what we should talk about. Like, I better take this really seriously. And so I did, and I listened, and I had this sense for this, it was like this river. It was this river flowing like back here. And it was everything. Everything was the river. And it sounded like a song. And so, I said, that's what I want to talk about. And we did. And I just continued to listen to that song. I would sit by, when I came home, I would sit by the river, and I would just think about the song. I would think about what I heard. And kind of what I wrote down was that the song, it was a river song of creation that everything was a part of, and all of us, we are tributaries. We are a thread. We are a current in the river, and we each have, like, it's like our umbilical cord, this connection with source, this connection with creation. And that it was our birthright to attune to that cord of who we are. And for me, one of the ways that I was like, I can share that with people is through songwriting, because that's just one medium that I've spent a lot of time with, and you can do it any way you want. We are all acts of creation at all times, so however you want to tend to that, that's available to you. But for me, it was a very tangible way that I could communicate was by sharing and teaching songwriting. And a lot of what it came down to was like getting out of your own way was undamming.
Yeah.
And like just like realizing that you are the person limiting yourself. And then what is your limitation, right? Like, what is the thing that limits you? Is it that you feel that your voice is not like a certain way? Is it that you can't play an instrument? Is it that, like, what is your perception of what limits you? Now, take that limitation, look at it, and be like, oh my gosh, this is a key. So that limitation is your key into your creative superpower. So you get to use that key to unlock the doorway of your own muse. Because literally, like, what I have come to find, what people have reflected back to me of what they appreciate about my art and my music has been like the imperfection. And it has come back to that so many times. It's so crazy. It's like what people feel connected to, what is meaningful to people. It's not like sounding perfect. It's not being perfect. It's like presence. It's the soul. It's your person. It's who you are. It's connection. And it's the invitation for others to participate in their own creative act of who they are. And there's so many things that we can talk about to get to that point, And like I said, there's these two parts of creativity and songwriting and all of these things. There's like this very tangible, like taking action-oriented, practical steps, the practical skills of like going where you want to go. And then there's like being open to the mystery, being a vessel for the moment, like just participating and just like being willing to like take yourself a little less seriously and like try something out, and see what comes from it. So anything is possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I love about how you hold that space. I've already taken it twice and I'm about to take it this third time, which is coming up end of January.
Yep. I think January 28th, I'm starting it. Yeah. And you can find out how to join. I think you're going to.
I'm going to put all those links in. But what I love, Savannah, is just like what you touched on is that imperfection, because it just de-armors the space, and you're so welcoming and playful, and you hold that space to allow, like for me, it's just like to come into listening, that practice of listening and not taking myself so seriously. And it's really bonding to be with others and witnessing others share. And so for those that might be listening, that might be feeling a little shy or dammed up themselves, or that they have a bunch of songs inside them that want to be created, what would you say to them?
Well, like, I would say that giving yourself space to acknowledge like who you are creatively is such a gift. And also like to be really kind and gentle and like go slow with what that looks like. And it's not about a product, it's not about producing something. It's about like asking the question of what is important to me, and what do I want to do with that. And so that's something I love about the online setting, actually, weirdly enough, because I've done it in person too, but there's something really sweet about the online where it's like everybody's on that personal journey. There you have your space and you get that practice with yourself to be at your pace, and then there's this like other part that's connection with others, to be witnessed in just like finding your way and finding your voice, however that looks to you. And it's your journey. It's nobody else's. So.
Well, this has been I know we're going to have another conversation to go deeper into Honora and the mythic and so much more. But I love this as a beginning.
It felt like a good beginning.
It's a good beginning.
And I'm so grateful. And ironically, like I'm so good at not taking myself seriously. Like that's probably my greatest creative gift. And like I'm working on taking myself slightly more seriously, which is hilarious because I'm like, what should you all do? Take yourself less seriously. What am I trying to do? Take myself slightly more seriously.
So on a serious note.
On a serious note. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a gift.
And love to end with a blessing for the listeners, and I'll begin it and you can complete it. May you remember to listen to the wildness within.
May you remember that you are enough as is, and that you have everything you need to begin.
Brilliant. Thank you, love.
Thank you.
Darling, it's nearly time. Your arrival is round the river bend. And though we don't yet know your rise, August heat brings newborn cries. And oh, my darling, your song is coming, and it sounds like